live from Las Vegas at the PCA show. After 2 years of hiatus, we're back in Vegas. World's largest cardboard trade show booth. Live here in Martinsville, Indiana. Live from Norwood Royal Cigars.
When you guys said, we want you to come on the show once a month, I was like, dude, this is it.
Happy afternoon here from cloudy Florida.
Happy afternoon.
Happy afternoon.
Presented by Kristoff Cigars.
Come on in, the water's fine.
Coming to you live from the Corona Cigar Company studios.
And here we are.
And we're on. Good evening, everyone, and thank you.
I thought it was a merry evening, Ronnie.
Happy evening, everyone.
A merry evening and a happy afternoon to everybody.
Good evening, and thank you. We're very excited for everybody. Our special guests, we've got a wonderful group of people here that we are going to talk some serious cigar industry information. We have Dr. Gatto and Dr. Oscar Rodriguez on tonight. We have Armin, the president of the Boutique Cigar. We have Josh. Josh, I'm going to mess up your last name. Habursky?
Habursky.
Sorry about that.
Czechoslovak name.
There you go.
And I even prepped him before, so I mean, this is how it goes.
Glenn Lube, Christine Morgan, and the rest of us, and I'll introduce you because we have a lot of new people on board to let you know who's who. My name is RnA Pecorini. My man next to me is Kyle Jesso.
Good evening, everyone.
Down in sunny Florida, those two guys with the hats on, that's my brother Bob Pecorini.
Tonight.
And good old cousin Frank there.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hold on, you got to get it right. It's retired Bob and cousin Frank. This is his name from now on.
All right, because that's going to have to be it.
Can I jump right in, right out of the gate?
No, go ahead.
Ask a question. So, Ronnie, the two of you are up in Illinois where it's blistering cold with sleeveless shirts. The other two guys are down in Florida with hats and coats.
Well, they're inside and we're outside in the cold front that hit Florida 2 days ago.
Right.
What can I
What is
tell
it,
you?
65, 70? You guys are all bundled up?
Actually, it just dipped below 90, and we're a little chilly. No, it's 47, 46 degrees here right now.
38. So
And we're sitting outside. So, yeah, it's kind of chilly.
All right. And they're both.
But we have our heater. We have our heater.
Yeah.
I'm praying for 46. I mean, 46 sounds like
So are we.
You and me
So
both,
are we.
Armin. You and me both.
All right, we'll be 70 tomorrow. So
It's all good. Anyway.
Man, you just saw that wound. You just keep pouring that salt in there, Bob.
I do, and I keep ripping that wound open more and more.
That you are. Anyway, folks, before we do get started, I'd like to ask everybody, please get your watch party out there. Share this show with everybody, because right now, anyone who smokes a cigar or smokes a pipe, anyone into the tobacco, you need to be listening to these folks here tonight, because it's vital. It's important that we get the word out. And I got a little bit of a
feedback somewhere.
We got an echo.
right,
Somebody
Frank.
has a phone. I don't know.
Sounds like somebody's going to break into purple haze any minute.
Okay.
Somebody has a mic.
Somebody has got their speaker on. Anybody got their speaker on? It's got some feedback from somebody.
You might have a phone. Might have a phone on at the same time.
Let me mute people.
All right.
see.
Yeah, let's do that
I
temporarily.
muted everybody. Sorry, everyone. That's the way it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
All right, there we go.
All right, so before we get started, we're going to do some of our sponsors, Frank, and then come right on back, and let's get this show rocking.
You got it.
Thank you.
This industry is steeped in family and tradition. There's generational stuff, and I see it over and over, and yet, no, I didn't come from that. Being the outsider looking in, I got to ask all the silly questions, and people were very accepting to want to give me all the right answers. I'm very thankful for those people who kind of allowed me to come in. Now with Alec and Bradley in the business, to have our company become generational, that's pretty cool.
Cigar in the Bottle is 2 palate-pleasing gifts in one. A specially blended Grand Pommier XS VSOP cognac is elegantly contained in patented numbered bottles. Winner of back-to-back medals at the LA Spirits Awards, Cigar in the Bottle inventor Forbidden Johnny teams up with Vartan and Hendrik Kellner for this custom-blended Vartan Reserva cigar, well-preserved in a hand-blown glass chamber featuring Boveda two-way humidification.
This is Phil Morgan, General Manager of Missouri Meerschaum Corncob Pipes in Washington, Missouri. Our mission since 1869 has been to produce great smoking pipes that anyone can afford. We guarantee our pipes won't be your most expensive, but they just might be the ones you smoke the most. At Missouri Meerschaum Company, we don't just sell our corncob pipes, we grow them, make them, and smoke them. Missouri Meerschaum, Washington, Missouri, since 1869.
At Norwood Royal Cigars, we have the biggest walk-in humidor in the Midwest. Our 1,500 square foot humidor is home to almost 4,000 different cigars that will meet the need of any cigar enthusiast. We have boutique blends to the more traditional selections and everything in between. From the novice beginner to the aficionado, the knowledgeable staff at NRC will find the perfect cigar for you. Located on the northwest side of Chicago, we want to be your shop for all your cigar wants and needs. As always, at Norwood Royal Cigars, light it, smoke it, love it.
Hey, and we're back. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for holding on. All right, folks, I guess it's time to get on to this show. Let's have a good time, and anyone have any questions while a question's asked, please, let's jump in and let's get things rolling. I'm going to start off with the first question here. Armin, by the way, you are the president of BCA. Is there anything you want to start off with and mentioning anything before we do get started on your end?
Oh, hold on.
Uh-oh.
Okay, go ahead.
You guys can hear me now?
Yep, there you go.
Yep.
Okay. Well, first of all, many thanks to you guys, Great Lakes, for creating this platform, for having us on, because these are very vital topics within our industry that we need to tackle. And we're greatly appreciative of that. And of course, our fellow guests speak for themselves. They're all phenomenal individuals who have a passion for this industry, and I think it's a great thing. So just a shout out to you guys, and to see how far you've come since the first day you started Great Lakes and where you are now, just watching the show. A lot of respect for all of you, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
As far as just really starting out by saying I'm honored to be amongst such individuals, and look, we're all here for the same reason, our love for the industry, and of course to see the industry flourish and to navigate through very difficult times, such as ones we're facing now with looming regulations with the FDA. So I think with everybody here, I'm sure there are going to be a lot of topics that we're going to tackle. And I'm hoping a lot of people are tuning in, because again, this is very vital to our industry.
It truly is, Armin. I agree with you 100%. Josh, Glenn, anything you want to start off with before I start answering the individual questions?
I will defer to the elder statesman, and then I'll go.
All right, Glenn, you're up.
Armin's already spoken.
Oh, man.
And with that, gentlemen, I shall start. All right. So here we go. On the first question to the BCA, what was the initial purpose for starting the BCA, and has your mission changed at all?
Good question. Well, first of all, I have to give that credit to Dr. Gabby Kafie of Kafie 1901. Of course, it was his vision, his baby. He's the one that had the foresight and created the BCA. Those who are a part of it now are lucky to be a part of it. So the mission really was to create a platform where small companies, boutique companies, family-owned, had a place where they can engage, where they can get business advice, or to help them navigate through litigation. And that's always That's always the number one issue, isn't it? And really just a place for them to feel like home, because there's so many, I would say, 300-400 boutique companies out there. And that's been growing exponentially over the past 10-20 years.
Yeah.
So that was the main purpose of the BCA. I mean, has it changed? Since the creation, obviously, first it was getting through the whole warning label thing, and kudos to PCA and CRA for that. But it's an ongoing battle. First it was warning labels. Now, of course, we have the issues with the grandfather clause and substantial equivalency. I guess we're all waiting for the hammer to drop in March. But right now, I guess the whole thing is to have a platform, because a lot of people want to grow their brand, and these aren't like the bigger companies where they have deep pockets. So it becomes very challenging, whether it's a trade show or big advertising in some of the bigger magazines. This is a different platform for them to come on board and just feel like they're not in competition with these bigger established companies that are out there. So I'm sure we had our first festival back in August of 2021, which was a big success, and it resorted within the industry with these smaller companies because, again, they don't have that financial burden of larger shows, and hopefully everybody gets to that level, of course. So in addition to the festival, regional events that we will start planning, of course, we have to keep everybody on their toes and see what happens in March.
Very good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Kyle.
So this is to like the PCA side. The BCA was established obviously to help the smaller companies navigate regulatory burdens imposed by the FDA, as well as create a unified voice for so many smaller producers that had no proper representation. How do you think a bridge can be built to bring the BCA and the PCA together?
I think a lot of the work that has been done in the past has been very complementary of one another. I know that Dr. Kafie has spoken on forums that we have set up with the FDA, and a lot of the boutique companies have an important voice. If it weren't for the lawsuits and the ongoing battles of PCA and CRA, a lot of the boutique companies wouldn't have products on the shelves. I think PCA is very focused on the business of retailing. We released a new mission statement last week, and we're really focusing on growing that sector, growing the industry, and ensuring that there is representation in Washington and creating those communication vehicles. And I think that having more voices at the table, more seats at the table is always positive. Glenn and I work, federal and state to ensure that the drumbeat is constant. And if there are avenues that we can explore to partner on things, I think that there's always an open door with our government affairs department and the association at large. But I would say every time that I had the ability to work and speak with Armin and Dr. Kafie, we have always had productive conversations. And when it was with the regulators and the elected officials, their voices in concert with ours really multiply the effectiveness.
If it's okay, if I can just add to that,
guys, jump in.
Sure. And I back everything Josh said 100%, because this isn't BCA, PCA. This isn't us. This isn't them. When it comes to things like that, we all have the same idea. We all have the same purpose. We all have the same common goal. Now, obviously, again, with the creation of the BCA, for the smaller companies, we're getting started, et cetera. But whether you're a company that's been around for 5 months, 5 years, or the past 150 years, we're all fighting the same battles. And regardless of what organization you're affiliated with, no matter how big or how small you are. Everybody has a voice, and everybody needs to exercise that voice. And when you have common interests, and when you're going up against, and Joshua knows this very well, this is what Glenn does. Let me tell you, I said it when he was in CRA that when he left, they're gonna have big shoes to fill. He knows what it means to lobby. He knows what it means to be in Congress. He knows what it means to meet with politicians. He knows this backwards and forwards. Again, when you have a common goal, when you're going up against government, when you're going up against FDA, everybody's one unit, and that's how it needs to be. So I totally concur with what Josh said.
Well, that kind of.
I think there's more of a.
Josh, I have a question. When you said you changed the mission to the only retail, what do you mean by that?
We are hyper focused on the retail issues in the 50 states and federally. That is our North Star. That there's an abundance of things that obviously affects the entire industry, but we need to focus on what our members are asking for us to challenge, especially in the states with the resource constraints that we have as an association. We want to fight back, and for an example, these tax increases at the point of sale, and also not only reactionary policies. I mean, last year was challenging. There was a lot going on in the background with the FDA and the National Academies of Sciences, which I'm sure we'll go into. But last year we also had a very good track record of no tax increases that were passed in any of the 50 states or the federal level. So that's a record that I want to see continue this year. And Glenn has that tall task of shepherding those 50 states, which we know there's already been introduction of tax bills. But we want to have some positive, momentum where the industry can grow and flourish. The line, and I've been in this now for 4 years and still learning from folks like Glenn and people who have been doing this for 20 years. But I noticed that the messaging is always constantly defend and protect the industry. And I think that's really important, but I think we need to take it to the next level and talk about the next generation of family-owned cigar businesses, the next generation of let's face it, there is a mold that we're painted on as tobacco as being bad, as being evil. And I want to change that narrative where it is a noble profession, whether you're a brick and mortar retailer in Richmond, Virginia, Washington, D.C., or you're a farmer or roller in Honduras or Nicaragua. You play an important role in this industry, and it is a noble profession. And there needs to be a path for other people to join and grow. And so anytime a new cigar lounge opens up, or a cigar shop or a boutique company, that's where the industry is really winning. We're growing and we're allowing the business to foster. And that's where the association and all that it offers comes in with the business practices, with the networking opportunities. And, we're fortunate, Glenn and I, to be a part of that. But on the advocacy front, we're the tip of the spear. And we do need to make sure that that message resonates in all 50 state capitals and in Congress and the White House and with the FDA and in the courts.
I just wanted to go back to the question about the PCA and the BCA. I think there's more of a bridge there than is given credit in a lot of discussions. I mean, when Rick Scott was governor of Florida, and we were engaging his office to get involved in defending what is an economic foundation of the state, Gabby Kafie and I did that together. When we had an audience with the Office of the Secretary of Health and Human Services under both the Obama and Trump administrations, Gabby Kafie and I did that together. When we made Capitol Hill calls on people like Congressman Bill Posey and Congresswoman Kathy Castor's office, we did that together. When we filed a joint public comment to the FDA on regulation, we added the BCA to the CRA public comment, which gave us a coalition of over 165 companies instead of 65 companies. So I think there's a lot of grand examples of where we have used that coalition to our political and bureaucratic advantage that has served the interests of everybody. And that has nothing to do with the litigation of over $17 million that has benefited the entire industry, including a lot of people that never contributed to it, which resulted in a savings of over half a billion dollars in packaging costs and regulatory compliance costs for every manufacturer on the entire planet. So I think there's a lot there to chew on in terms of a state of cooperation between all sectors of the industry.
I agree with that. And I think maybe we should start with Dr. Garo's home state of California, because from what I'm hearing recently is that they're looking to double the taxes across the board. And I can't imagine what kind of disaster.
Well, you got to keep in mind, and sometimes the finger pointing starts beginning when we start talking about tax increases in California. You got to remember how California does it. It's not according to what happens in the legislature. Let me repeat that. It's not according to what happens in the legislature. It's based upon a methodology on taxation and consumption on the cigarette industry. And it's one of the few states where the tax on OTP is married to the cigarette tax. And it goes up exponentially or down. It has actually gone down at times. But it's based on, a methodology that's set in stone. And so there's nothing really a governor or a legislature can do about it. So, I hope we can stay away from that finger pointing subject.
Sounds good. No problem.
Yeah,
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, Armin or the BCA, what are the immediate goals of the BCA moving forward at this point?
Sure. So we are coming up on the second annual festival, which is going to be August 12 and 13, once again at Cedar Creek in Martinsville, Indiana. We're gearing up for that because, again, the first year was very successful, and we've had an outpouring of emails and calls. So we're anticipating not only double the vendors that are going to be present, but also attendees as well. So that's a big undertaking. In the interim, we've also, with the 48 companies that comprise the BCA, we have also put together a number of subcommittees, because as we're growing, of course, the guys at BCA will attest, all the responsibility cannot fall, in the hands of the few. Correct. So with that and some other things that in time we'll start to advertise and talk about down the road. Of course, we're all keeping an eye on what's happening with the FDA, what's happening in March. Kind of, we're all waiting in the wings to see how we're going to tackle that situation.
Oh yeah,
Gotcha.
definitely.
Okay.
In relation to the PCA, how can you guys highlight, or how do you highlight a PCA approach to a grassroots support and building a national network to support our cigar industry or the tobacco industry?
Josh,
tackle that, Josh? Or?
Yeah, I'm happy to tackle that. It's one of those things where, building the national network, it's, the numbers game. We're fighting against the anti-tobacco groups that are much more well-funded than any of the organizations in the premium cigar space. So, we have a tough challenge ahead of us to recruit people, retain people, keep people active in the fight, when a lot of times some of these issues are always reoccurring, or they get into the weeds. They're nebulous. They involve the courts. They involve regulators. It's not a clear cut, it passes or fails. It goes through these different cycles. And, we're in the midst of the cycle with the tax situation federally. It's right now, it's off the table. We want to ensure, and we're undergoing 35 additional meetings. We did 150 Congressional Hill visits at the federal level last year to ultimately have the tax pulled out of the Build Back Better Act. We're, ensuring that we have our insurance policy that moves forward. We've also worked with members of Congress to reignite the Congressional Cigar Caucus, which is a communications vehicle for positive policy to be introduced. So we're building grassroots coalitions, within Congress, but also working with consumers, retailers. The retailers are the face of the cigar industry for most consumers to interact. And, we're trying to set up Cigar Action and build that and continue to build and improve that. This tax fight was our largest campaign, where we had 35,000 consumers take part in that effort. So we want to see larger and larger numbers. There are 3 million plus cigar enthusiasts out there, and we need to get them involved in the advocacy for this industry if we're going to be successful. But it isn't one of those things that is a quick, process. A lot of it is keeping people enthusiastic, being a bit of a cheerleader, and being a bit of a civics teacher of letting them know this is when it's most effective. And on the strategy side, the technology side, that's where Glenn and I are hitting our stride now, and we feel that we're pushing the right levers at the appropriate time. And as it relates to the Food and Drug Administration, there's a lot of changes that are about to occur with a new commissioner of the FDA that is likely to be confirmed this week or next week, and then a new Center for Tobacco Products director. And I've been saying on any show that I've been on over the past 2 or 3 weeks that is a once-in-a-decade opportunity for the industry. In Mitch Zeller, we had somebody that worked for the anti-tobacco groups and the Truth Initiative and received thousands of dollars from these anti-tobacco groups. We want to get somebody that's a medical professional that, follows the science, but doesn't come from that camp of being a zealot who hates all tobacco products and paints them with one broad stroke. So, when that position is open, we're going to do what we can. It's not something that requires a Senate confirmation, unlike the FDA commissioner, which we've been going through right now. So, to build that grassroots vote, and I know I've gone on along with this question.
No, this is great, Josh. Honestly, I just want to say right now we do have 2 out of 3 doctors who own their own cigar companies. We have Dr. Garo, Dr. Oscar, and Dr. Gabby. The 3 doctors who all 3 own their own cigar line that would probably be perfect for what you're looking for the science that we need. I mean, do we have anyone right now in the FDA that is on our side, that it's helping us?
Yeah, you'd be surprised. Within the FDA, there's a few different branches in there. There's regulatory affairs, scientific affairs, communications, and believe it or not, some of the staff from the FDA come to the different festivals and the shows, and they monitor and they ask questions. And I've had conversations with 2 or 3 of them that said, "Hey, I wish I could, smoke a cigar with you, but I would get in some trouble for that." So, and even on the anti-tobacco groups, there's one person in particular, and I won't name names, that seems to be fighting with us and actually fought against us in the NASM, the National Academy of Sciences, that is known to enjoy an occasional cigar or 2. So, it's a bit of hypocrisy there.
Listen, it's absolutely no accident. It's absolutely no accident that the FDA has publicly said that premium handmade cigars are their lowest level of priority for enforcement. No accident whatsoever. You know why? Because the studies have broken our way. When you can quote the Centers for Disease Control, when you can quote the American Medical Association, when you can quote the New England Journal of Medicine, when you can quote industry studies that were provided in a 659-page public comment that demographically we're not the problem, public health perspective we're not the problem, that message has gotten through. And I think the lack of hardcore regulation against it is a testament to that. It's been a combination of what's gone on in the courts and what's been publicly filed. and what's been objectively provided in studies that we had nothing to do with. You don't plant a study with the Centers for Disease Control. You don't plant a study with the AMA, and you don't plant a study with the New England Journal of Medicine. And yet all of these analyses, in addition to the FDA studies, have said, guess what? We're not the problem. And that's the reason we're in a much grander position today than we were 12 years ago.
Fantastic.
We have one quick question from the audience. Anthony James asked, do you know how many of them actually smoke themselves?
Oh, Jesus.
I wish I knew the answer to that.
Well, here's my next question. It might go out to Dr. Oscar, who's been around his family 100 plus years. Dr. Garo, who's just celebrating 25 years. So with the presence of the other cigar organizations that have stored and respected the past, where does the BCA see themselves amongst the others? And Armin, chime in if you want to.
I don't want the doctors want to say anything.
Dr. Oscar, you guys have been around a long time.
Well, I'll let Armin roll.
So, what was the question? How do we see ourselves amongst other?
Yes, with the presence of other cigar organizations that have storied and respected past, where does the BCA see themselves amongst these others that are out there?
So again, as I said, when it comes to the passion for the industry and of course fighting battles as they come up, we all share that. Where do we stand? I think, and again, this has nothing to do with us and them, but the BCA really, the mission of it was to build a community for the smaller brands. Maybe this is a topic for another show, but I don't know how they do it, but some companies miraculously come out of nowhere, and they're, I guess they have the funding from where I don't know, but it's very difficult for small family-owned businesses to really compete with the big boys. It's hard on every level, whether it's online, whether it's retailers, whether it's going to trade shows or what have you. I mean, we do our thing with the small family-owned businesses. But again, as Glenn said earlier, bridging the gap, and that's what it's all about. So we're unique in our own way. We're unique as how we approach. A lot of people throw out the word boutique. Everybody seems to have their own definition of boutique. But lately, I've been kind of leaning more towards the word craft. So yeah, I would say for more the hands-on, family-owned craft, unique brands, our approach to not only the cigars but how we approach retailers. But look, it's an industry where I say this: it doesn't matter how big or how small you are. Everybody has a voice. Everybody should have a voice. Everybody is relevant, and nor there should there be any boundaries. But how we stand alone, again, we really focus on the smaller brand. But when it comes to the industry, we should all have one voice.
Yeah.
Correct.
I mean, just a quick question to Oscar and Garo. I mean, you guys started off as a small family. How did you guys overcome the industry, setbacks and like getting the trade show booths and everything? Like, how did you find yourselves, making yourselves a player within the industry?
Well, myself, when I started, I didn't know there was even an organization. I just started because of my passion for cigars while I was going to medical school in Dominican. So after finding the only way that I can have a platform was when the show was called RTDA. And I felt really at that time, the first 10 years of my existence, it's like, being very amicable place, very supportive because of the old timers, and they were coming and supporting you morally, saying that good job what a good job you're doing. We're happy that you're passionate with the cigar. As the time went by, it's like things are changed, and we changed too. We were going to the shows just to make our presence there, just making our presence there that, we're still alive. That was the platform for me. It wasn't the way RTDA used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it continued as the time goes. It was going on less. It was getting less and less. And I was doing, at least I was going out and reaching to the retailers, talking to the people, learning things about the research, and talking to people on my own, saying that what's the difference between the cigars and the cigarette, the other tobacco, and so forth and so forth. And that's how I took it, because the passion, as Armin said, it never left me till now.
Mm-hmm.
Still passionate about it. If they still have a practice, and if they sometimes they ask me a question, which one would you rather leave right now? I would tell them the medicine. I would leave the medicine and stay with the cigar because of the passion that I have. But with the science and so forth, I had to ask Glenn the question, because earlier you were telling that the FDA and the cigar was at the lower, less important to them, or something to that extent, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and why is that? Because they know, and why we can't take that and magnify it, saying that, bring the science in a way that premium tobaccos, they're fermented, they cannot be controlled by the FDA. They're alkaline. It doesn't penetrate the lungs because of the heavy, the pH. And the other cigarettes, sweet tobaccos or flavored, they're more acidic. It penetrates the alveoli. That's why you can inhale. Those are the differentiation I'd like to see more emphasized, and that might give us a better chance.
No, Doctor. I think that differentiation's been made. I think it's been made in a way that in a message that's gotten through to the agency. And it's not just because of the fermentation process. It's not just because of the difference in the approach to manufacturing that makes us different and unique. They've also seen the data on the demographic front. They recognize that teenagers are not consuming premium handmade cigars, and they recognize the enforcement data. The enforcement data clearly says that the FDA has done over 1 million, and I'm not making that number up, over 1 million compliance inspections on the retail community, and it clearly denotes that we're not the problem in terms of underage access to tobacco in any form. And from the studies that I reeled off have been a clear substantiation that we're not a threat on the public health front. So it's multiple reasons why we are the lowest form of priority for enforcement with the agency, not just the manufacturing process.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Oscar, do you have
anything on that one, Oscar? Your family's 100 years in the business.
Well, for us, it's been a little bit different, because we were always behind the scenes. Our focus is, or has been, for the ages, more of, we grow tobacco. That's about 75% of our business. We make stuff for other companies. So we were always, nobody really knew about us because we just do other people's things. I didn't get to participate in any of the trade shows because the companies that we made the product for, they were out there doing all the legwork. It wasn't until I decided to take our blends, the blends that I liked, and move them forward. And that's when I started to experience my problems, because I'm like the only American entity of our business. So I named it GTO, I named it after my cars, and I wanted to make it available.
It's a beautiful name.
Nice.
Love GTO.
But getting out there, you've got to be, beating the pavement, educating people. Everybody asks me if this is something they can do, and I say, not only can you do it, I prescribe it. Yeah, I mean, it's something I believe in, and I've taken on many physicians that try to contradict me, because I just tell them, I was like, show me, prove it, give me data, show me what you know. Just don't tell me what you think, because there's a lot of bias that old guys and other guys have without even studying this topic. So knowing what we know and what we have in front of us today, I think it's time for everybody, for the rest of them to just join in, because every hospital I go to, all the lead physicians, all of us, we smoke, and we know why we smoke. Wow. It's longevity. It's as good as taking a statin every day. You take a statin, you're going to live longer.
Yeah, we'll see a psychiatrist.
You just need to hear.
Yeah, I love
hey,
it.
Frank, take it away with the number 7 there, will you?
Well, I think this one's actually for the PCA. How are we currently approaching advocacy at the state level in terms of retailer and consumers being engaged in the process? So probably Glenn, that's directed towards you.
It's about the network, and really, and I don't know whether to say it's a sad part of the commentary or a great part of the commentary, but in most states that we have issues, we have at least one retailer that is playing a central role with being the go-between between the capital and us in terms of advocacy. In a lot of states, we have a great coalition of retailers that are working together to get their political perspective across, whether it's defending a good bill or fighting a bad bill. I mean, for example, today I was on the phone with 2 retailers from Indiana on tax legislation that's been filed in the state of Indiana. Today I was on the phone with one retailer for a concerning bill in the state of Iowa. I was on the phone this afternoon with one retailer on legislation on tax issues in Idaho. I can call Karen Mills on tax legislation and smoking regulation in Massachusetts. I could go around the country to at least 26 states and know that we've got a point person or a point coalition of a state association. For example, a splendid coalition have come together in New York to initiate some very, very positive legislation there. We have strong associations in Maryland, Virginia, Ohio, Colorado, Texas, Georgia. I mean, I can go around the country and talk about the wonderful work that's being done by the retail community, galvanizing their consumers, working directly with legislators to initiate great legislation or trying to kill the bad stuff, as one of our former Virginia legislators used to say. So I think it's been a matter of education and training and organization and great leadership being displayed by a handful of retailers in most states where we do have problems or issues or opportunities. So the state, we're in a building capacity mode right now. We're going to be getting state associations off the ground and be working with retailers in Kentucky and Louisiana to name a couple of states that we need to beef up their political apparatus, and they can learn from the other 26 states that have organized themselves. So I'll tell you what it goes back to. When I started lobbying for this business, volunteering with the Cigar Association of Virginia in 2006, I looked at a room of these guys and gals, retailers in the state, and I said, politics is now in your job description. You're no longer just a tobacconist. You're no longer just a tobacconist. Politics is in your job description. And look at where this industry has gone exponentially since the PCA moved from Georgia to Washington, D.C., since state associations have become more the norm than an anomaly. There's been such a leapfrog effect in the level of political sophistication that this industry has grown and blossomed with just in the last 5 to 7 years, really. And that's nothing in terms of political time. And it's been in response to threat. It's been in response to opportunities that this industry has answered a clarion call to organize itself politically. And that's as true for the manufacturers as it is for the retailers And now we need to, continue our work to build a national network of consumers.
Yeah. We have a perfect comment from the audience. Anthony says it beautifully. And he says, just think of the professional sports athletes, when they celebrate a championship. And not even professional. It could be college, too, because we saw it in the last NCAA football championship game. They celebrate with cigars. You never see them celebrate with cigarettes. So, I mean, right there is a standard right there between the two.
Absolutely.
It's a wonderful analogy. It's a great analogy. And it highlights one of the cornerstones of our message to the FDA. We are a hobby. We're not a habit. I mean, nationally, 2 cigars a week, what is it, Josh? 2 a week or 2 a month?
2 a month. Less than 2 a month.
Nobody's out chain smoking.
Oh, no. Nobody wakes up in the morning.
I promise I'm not chain smoking.
I need to talk to my wife about that.
That was your daily.
Easy, Ron.
I have a question for the BCA. In your opinion, what should be really the primary focus of the cigar industry with its fight against the FDA? Primarily, what should that be?
Primarily, and we all touched on it. Josh did, Glenn did. We spoke about it. It should have always been about the science. And as Glenn said, on many occasions, he and Gabby have teamed up on this subject. I know that he himself had done extensive research into the matter, because it is night and day between cigars and any other combustible product, and the data's there. I mean, there are pages and pages of research that goes back 50, 60, 70 years. But the one frustration that we've had is, why hasn't it always been the number one argument with this battle with the FDA? Why hasn't it always been specifically the science? I'm not here to name names, but in having other discussions with other groups, other individuals, it was, leave that alone. The NAS is doing its thing. No need to rock the boat. But when it came down to it, through Gabby's hard work, Dr. Garo, Dr. Oscar, a number of medical documents were sent to the NAS, and Dr. Gabby actually received a phone call in addition to many follow-up emails thanking him, saying, this is what we have been looking for. You basically answered so many of our unanswered questions. You've basically been able to fill in the blanks, even though this is past the July deadline. It was going to be brought forth to the board, the committee, or whatever it is, to seriously review what was sent. So then you kind of ask yourself that, well, why is this happening at the 11th hour? Why reaching out to NAS was discouraged in the first place? But nevertheless, just to shorten it, I think it should have always been the science, because cigars, not to get into the whole thing right now, it vastly differs from any other combustible product.
True. The next question is geared towards the PCA. The National Academy of Science and Medicine commissioned last year to do a study on the health effects and usage patterns of premium cigars. What is the status of that study, and what was their process, and how will this affect the premium cigar industry? Josh?
Yeah, so, I think that's connected to what Armin was talking about. With that, the committee has done several meetings behind the scenes. We presented, myself, Drew Newman, CRA. There were several groups, and it was funny. Kind of the backstory of it. We were told that we would have 3 minutes to prepare a statement, which we did. And following that 3 minutes, they went into a question and answer period, which they did not tell us that they were doing. And Drew and I had to field their questions for an hour and a half, 15 medical professionals. That was one of the most challenging sessions that we had.
Wow.
But we were able to get them the data and the information from the NIH, the FDA, the PATH study, the medical information, the small business information, the totality of it. So what occurred, and this is related to the lawsuit on substantial equivalence and pre-market review. The FDA basically abdicated their authority to the National Academies of Sciences to do this research study. And it is a literature review on the health effects and usage patterns of premium cigars. And so they've been in the midst of this information collection period, which they still are in. And they're discussing behind the scenes what the literature states. And, on that, the opposing anti-tobacco groups, they had a whole day where they were able to present their information and a lot of falsehoods. I thought the funniest of their presentations was holding up the Cigar Aficionado cover of Nick Jonas saying, look, the premium cigar industry advertises to kids. And it's like, no, Nick Jonas is 30 years old and owns a tequila brand in addition to smoking. So that's completely baseless. And then you had, and I know Great Lakes Smoke Show, you guys played the clip of the one doctor talking about how premium cigars are a fabrication and invention of the industry.
There's no such thing as a premium cigar.
Yeah, that is what we're dealing on the opposite side. So later this year, they're going to release their findings of this literature review. Now, that itself does not have legal or punitive weight to it. So that will not be a regulation itself, but that will inform future regulations. And, the study itself, we take exception on a few things. Number one, they never set a baseline for a definition of a premium cigar. Yet the judge who ruled in the case on substantial equivalence and pre-market review did define a premium cigar, and the FDA used a definition in later documents in their finalization of the pre-market substantial equivalence rule, which was occurring at the end of the Trump administration, was put on hold, and then was since went through under the Biden administration, using that definition of a premium cigar that was advocated for by PCA and CRA many months before that. So, the process in the long and short of it is that will be an interesting development along the lines of future regulation. Now, the FDA has also stated, and they did a big press conference late last year, that they want to ban flavored cigars. And a lot of times with what we have seen at the state level, they take an overly broad brushstroke of what they call flavored cigars to meaning characterizing flavor cigars. So if on the Great Lakes Smoke Show, they described the cigar that I'm smoking right now of having notes of cocoa or chocolate, no, they're not actually with cocoa or chocolate, would that be restricted? Would that be prohibited? So, we believe it's just as much of a free speech issue where, if you are a media outlet or a publication talking about cigars, you have every right to describe what the product experience is when you talk about it in front of consumers and retailers. And shelf talkers for our retail members, that's important to have shelf talkers when people are going into the lounges and shops to make purchasing decisions. So there's a lot of stuff that will transpire in the next year related to the NASEM study, related to the court cases. But, fortunately, in some instances, government moves extremely slow, and there'll be a proposed comment, which we will have the ability to submit comments, and other organizations and manufacturers and retailers, which they will hopefully do. And in that process, there will be several challenges to that as well. And that's completely separate from the legislative front and what's going on in Congress.
one quick thing for you, Josh, and we've been getting comments on this because you touched on the flavored cigars. Do you know of anything about the pipe tobacco industry? Are they being grouped into this? Because a lot of our pipe smokers are cigar smokers as well.
So, yeah, in the press, it was really a press kit. They did no formal policy. The FDA did not mention pipe tobacco. They still do not know how to define pipe tobacco. So they're still at square one when it comes to pipe tobacco. And I think it's important to note that is a big audience segment. And a lot of times we get questions at PCA and some criticism of, are you still involved with pipes? Absolutely. If you notice, when we were fighting the tax issue and the tax run at the federal level, we made it a point to talk about the 1,600% tax increase as it relates to pipe tobacco. So that's something that has not gone away. That's something that will continue to beat the drumbeat on. And, if it's appropriate to engage in that comment as it relates to prohibitions, the PCA is not an organization that advocates prohibiting products that are sold by our members. Now, it's important we have a very tight definition of a premium cigar because we believe that that's a key off-ramp that will get the most regulatory relief for the industry. But if it doesn't meet that standard, there is still tiered regulation where none of the products that we're talking about right now, pipe tobacco, they should not have the same regulatory apparatus as that of cigarettes or vapor products or things that have statistically more harmful or usage patterns that would go into that youth category.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Frank, I think you got one more
last
question,
one there, Frank?
and then we're going to go to a sponsor segment real quick.
Armin, what does the BCA look to get out of this panel discussion? Because I know this was set up, and I think it's important for us to understand what do you want? What do you want to be your takeaway from this? Yeah.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, awareness of what the industry is facing. Some people might have a general idea. Some might not have any idea. Obviously, the first thing is to kind of inform and educate people of where we are with our battles with the FDA and what's ahead. Second, of course, it's a great platform for the PCA to talk about everything that they've done, and also for the BCA and what we've done and what we stand for. And also, as I've said before, we may have certain interests that are specific to our members, as does the PCA. But at the end of it, when it comes down to things of this nature, that we are one voice, and people should realize that. And there are things that we still need to figure out moving forward, because I myself and my partner with a small company that has only been in existence for barely 5 years, and others just like us, you look towards the bigger companies, you look towards other seasoned individuals for guidance and answers to questions that you don't know the answers to. And one of the key things that the BCA even wanted me to ask and address, and this is something we can all talk about, is the advice was, when this was all happening, that things were unfolding with the grandfather clause and substantial equivalency. The message that we were getting was, stay put, don't do anything, don't be compliant. There's still a lot to be worked out. Stay in a holding pattern. But when you look at it, and you can simply just go online, the wave of grandfathered brands that has been registered, I think there's over 6,000 of them that have come on there from a lot of these big companies. So you kind of left scratching your head. All right, we were told to kind of stay in a holding pattern, but here they are registering all these brands. Are they waiting to just swoop in and just take over the industry? I don't know. I don't know if that's a question that we can answer now, but certainly something to think about.
Josh, Glenn, anything on that one there?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we have to do as, professional staff is kind of referee what's going on. We don't want to see the industry weaponized by, certain companies or certain entities to use regulation to stuff out anybody from that, whether, it's at the retail side of, hey, someone's thinking about opening up a new shop. Well, no, you can't do that because that's in this retailer's backyard. And the same thing on the manufacturing side. And, if you weaponize government and regulation to an advantage, chances are everybody loses out. And that's not where a scenario where the industry gets to grow, thrive, and prosper. And that's ultimately our goal is to see that. So, the guidance that we're giving to folks is that, you need to interact. More voices are at the table are important, and the stories of smaller companies and the effect of these regulation is, astronomically more harmful for the little guys. So that voice has to be at the table. And ever since my tenure 3 years ago in the federal side, there's always been that voice at the table, whether it's with the Center for Tobacco Products, the FDA, or any forum, and that we've hosted at a high level. So, that will continue on our side. I'm not naive to the fact that there are things that go on outside of the association and our apparatus. We have to be vigilant of that. A lot of times we call that out. And, when all is said and done, there's some great stories that Glenn and I have that are war stories about the battles that have transpired even in these past 3 years of trying to play that referee of, somebody's going on their own, going rogue. And it's like, no, you do this and it's detrimental to the industry at large. And, we're exploring things. We put together in advance of this year a 30-page outline of our government affairs strategy, and we're working to implement what we believe is achievable success. There are some things that are have lowered in the priority level or have been taken off of the table in order to get these achievable successes that benefit the industry at large. And, that change is tough. And, I think in that, we are always open to criticism. We're always open to new ideas. We want to have that dialogue. And, my phone and Glenn's phone are open. People call and reach out to us. And, I'm not going to beat around the bush and give people the answer that's most convenient or the one that they like. I'm going to give them my professional opinion as a lobbyist, and I've been doing it for 10 years for other associations in banking and transportation and healthcare on a bit of the other side. So, with that experience, we know what works from the tools, tactics, and technology, and it's implementing them with our partners and coalition forces.
Awesome. So we want to have you guys hold on just a second. Stay with us. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to go to some of our sponsors here, and we'll be back in just a quick minute.
And when we do come back, I'm going to get that young lady right in the middle, Christine, to have a woman's point of view of all it is so
She's
far.
She's been very quiet.
Yes.
She's center square.
Yeah. I've been very taught that you got to be very wary of the person who is very quiet because they're listening and they're dissecting this. So we need to watch you here.
You're on. Frank, take it away.
RnA Treasures out of Tampa Bay, Florida. The last of a legacy. The last of an inventory of Thomas Cristiano in a warehouse where everything is aged and well kept for all your pipe and smoking needs. Loyalty, passion, courage. These are the founding principles of K by Karen Berger Cigars. The Maduro, the Habano, and the newly rated 93 by Cigar Journal Connecticut. Do yourself a favor and check out this wonderful line of cigars that come from a completely linear company from seed to your hands.
At Mountain Smoke Premium Tobacco, we specialize solely in the finest hand-rolled, craft, and boutique cigars on the market. Mountain Smoke Premium Tobacco is sure to have something that will excite you. Shop our online humidor at www.mountainsmokewv.com.
Here we are again.
And we're back.
Hey.
So, Christine, tell us a little bit of what's happening within the women's world of the cigar and what you've heard.
Well, look, so I come from the perspective, I have the unique perspective today of actually being a former employee of PCA. So I have a very special understanding of the difficulties that they are facing and just how divisive it can be, in that inner circle and how impossible it is to completely be inclusive. So, as we were talking about what BCA hopes to get out of this podcast, Armin kept mentioning bridging the gap. And I think that's especially with where PCA has put their efforts towards their retailers, which not a lot of people, I think, realize that at PCA's inception back when it was RTDA, there was also a Cigar Manufacturers Association. Mm-hmm. So because they had different goals. Now, as the result of taxes and tariffs, the Cigar Manufacturers Association kind of went away and focused back on the retailers. And I think this is a point where it needs to come back to both of those things, because it's been made very, very clear that both this, even though we have the same goal to not just survive, but thrive in the cigar industry, we have different methods in which we need to do it. And there's such a big gap in the large companies and then the smaller boutique companies, that the boutique companies need representation. So I think that's where an association like BCA is really key. And I think it gives us the opportunity to work together, where PCA has said, okay, we're going to be more exclusive in focusing on the retailer agenda. There also needs to be a focus on the manufacturer agenda, particularly the small companies. And as Armin mentioned earlier, there's more and more smaller companies popping up every day. Yep. I think roughly 300 boutique cigar associations. And unfortunately, not all of them are going to make it, but we need to do what we can to try. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where the BCA has an opportunity to sit at the table. Now, Boston Jimmy brought a question in the comments about the BCA having a seat on the board at PCA, especially since and I understand there's a process to this. So, but, I think that having that manufacturer representation in a real way and focusing on their issues and their methods, because I mean, that's why they had to do this. Everybody needs to have a voice. And again, like I said, I understand how impossible it is from the PCA perspective to make everybody happy. It just can't happen. You're always going to have somebody that feels left in the dust, because not everything can be managed in that particular way. But I do think that that's an important point and something that I wanted to bring up, particularly since Armin kept saying, bridging the gap. Not that PCA created the gap. I think that it's legislation by and large that has essentially created the gap.
Well, that's a great question, though. Josh, Glenn, is there any way of getting a BCA member with you guys to represent the little guys?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's part of the process that was released, to my understanding, last week. There's certain criteria, and there are BCA companies that are eligible to be on the board. It's an election process of our retail members. If there are BCA companies that are interested, I would reach out to Scott Pierce, our executive director. But there are openings for small companies, large companies. The two seats. That's really up to the membership of the PCA in voting for those two. And that was a major decision that the board, discussed for many different meetings, and there are seismic changes going on with the PCA, positive changes for growth and inclusivity, but also focusing on tailoring our message and our strategy so that we can be effective fighting force and one that is around for many years to come. And there's going to be another wave of announcements later this month that are also more positive changes that stems from the board. We have a very proactive board across the slate, the 15 retail members, the 3 manufacturing members that were announced in that press statement last week. And everyone wants to roll up their sleeves and get to work and make the industry a better place. And I think that these incremental steps that we're taking and some big leaps are a part of that. So to answer the question, yes. And I think I'm getting paid on this podcast by the word. I'm going to tell my employer I want to get paid by the word.
That's not bad.
No, hold on.
Usually Glenn is long-winded, so
Let's not leave it open for Glenn.
I got $1 million question here. Now, how did a lovely woman such as yourself, Christine, leave the PCA? Like, I mean, come on. I mean, we love having a woman's voice, and now why'd you leave?
Unfortunately, that wasn't my decision. The pandemic, PCA took a big hit. They had to cancel the trade show, which
boo.
So, I got sent out on an ice flute. No, just kidding. Stuff happens, but obviously I'm still passionate about the industry, and this is why I'm here. And unfortunately, I didn't get to interact with Glenn too much, but Noah's reputation will have nothing but respect for Glenn and Josh. I miss you. I miss working with you.
We're overdue for a cigar. We're overdue for a cigar.
And some tacos, okay?
It's Taco Tuesday.
Yeah.
That's a fun fact about me. I own a taco and tequila bar. 2 of them, opening a 3rd one. So.
Wow.
And it's fantastic.
Awesome. That's cool.
I've been there once or twice.
We got to talk to you separately about pairing.
Wow.
Yeah, tequila pairings.
There we go. We got to talk to you about that one.
Tequila pairings with your cigar. I like this.
Just to let you guys know, Dr. Garrell's having a little bit of difficulties listening and hearing us. So that's why we're not kind of bringing him in. And Oscar always has his internet problem. So he'll be popping in and out, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, when you're outside the U.S., you are dealt with what you can get.
Being in the DR, he's got to deal with what he's got. Hopefully he is hearing us. But I got a question here. Moving on. PCA, last year, the Congressional Cigar Caucus was formed in the House of Representatives. Can you tell us about the caucus, why it was formed, and what purpose it will serve?
Absolutely. So it's being restarted. It actually went away for a couple of years. It was more of a social setting where people just would enjoy cigars. This is a restart and reboot of it. It's important, again, as we talk about proactive issues, that we have a mechanism that can generate policy discussions. Now, the Congressional Cigar Caucus is already over 40 members in the House of Representatives. We're gaining more and more members of that caucus, and the plans are to have a Senate counterpart to have discussions to highlight and feature different parts of the industry. When I came on board in my first year, we did a pilot session, a diversity inclusion panel on Capitol Hill. And had conversations about the different mechanisms within the industry from that standpoint. Last year, we did one on the international scale, bringing people in from Africa, from the DR, from Europe, all around the world to talk about the impacts of the premium cigar industry. So those are the types of conversations that we want to have. The pandemic has kind of stunted our public event series. We used to do one a month. where we would show films like Hand Rolled. We would have folks like Drew Newman talk about the historic factory and things like that, where we can educate lawmakers and their staff about premium cigars and not just about the tobacco, that side of things, but some of the other related issues. So this Congressional Cigar Caucus is a springboard and a communications tool for that. This weekend, I will actually be with 10 of the members of the Congressional Cigar Caucus in Florida with two manufacturers. Again, it's in its infancy. We're trying to see and educate them so that they have the information. It's been like an information dump. Representative Dan Muser out of Pennsylvania, Representative Tom Emmer out of Minnesota are really leaders and pioneers of this, and their staff have been incredible to work with. So I think it will be a really positive attribute and voice on Capitol Hill outside of us hired guns that work for the associations.
Okay. Yeah. So this next one is going to go to Armin and the BCA here. With regard to the FDA and this upcoming vote, what do you think the next year or two will show? And do you believe companies that were established after 2008 will they be able to make it?
Good question. I don't know if I can foresee the future that far down, but
just your crystal ball. Just put it out there, and
hold on. Honestly, I could probably answer that question a lot better in March when we actually know something solid. I mean, they're ready to come forward with whatever decision they're going to make. So depending on which way it goes, honestly, I'm cautiously optimistic, but that window's closing more and more, and which leads to the second part of that question of what will happen to, unfortunately, a lot of the newer companies. I hate to say it, and I hope it doesn't happen. Nobody likes to see businesses fold, especially when you put your heart and soul, your sweat, your money, your tears into it. But yeah, unfortunately, it will be a matter of survival for so many of these new companies. And it's a shame because you see their passion, you see their drive. And look, it comes down to the product too. And they have amazing cigars. So yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame.
Can I hold on a second? Let's just put this in perspective. And Josh alluded to this. This academy has no regulatory power. There's not going to be a vote. There's not going to be a yay or nay. There's going to be a study, and you know what? The study's going to be bad. I can see that crystal ball now. The study's going to be bad. Sure. But we've confronted bad studies before. And you know what? We took it to court. And a federal judge said, guess what? We made our point. And in the bureaucracy, we've made a point. And enough and now hundreds of thousands of dollars. Excuse me, echo.
Sorry.
Has been spent to compile the necessary studies to properly defend this industry, whether it's in court or with a bureaucracy. What we're confronting right now began on Premium Cigars in 2014. Matter of fact, it was May 2014. And then in 16, when a final rule came out. And guess what? There's been a tremendous number of outstanding, amazing premium cigars put on the market since then.
True. Yeah.
Yep.
Since then. So let's just put that in perspective for just a second. We've got enough enemies and naysayers and bureaucratic souls that would love nothing more than to put this industry out of business. And they haven't won yet.
So I guess that's leading to this is for everyone. Everyone chime in. I mean, Armin already says he doesn't really have a good crystal ball, but what is everyone's prediction? What do you think
Everybody's
is going to happen?
concerned here in March.
Well, I mean,
Hurry.
it's tough because I don't know. I don't know how we have we won the lawsuit. I mean, we won initially with warning labels, and now it seems though, like many other countries, are we now headed towards what is it? Plain packaging.
Yeah, the ones that have gotten plain packaging don't have the magic of the First Amendment. The nations that have imposed the plain packaging don't have a First Amendment.
Okay,
I
hope so.
Yeah.
What are the chances on getting this out of the FDA's hands? It should never have been there in the first place. It really is agricultural. I mean, it's a plant.
Yes.
Is there any possibility of just getting it out from them?
There is a overall challenge to the deeming rule that is still pending. That is another lawsuit that is still a pending lawsuit. So that will likely be decided later this year.
Okay.
Okay, that's great. That's good to know.
When is that coming up? When is that up for discussion? Do you know, Josh? Or
Just later this year. We're kind of waiting for when that will be rendered, but that is something that is in the pipeline. There has been discussions on that before. So they're in the lawsuits. They're overlapping ones. There's it gets confusing. I mean that was probably the toughest part of the onboarding is sorting the lawsuit where each one lies and what is still to come. So that is something that could be rendered. We had 5 different key points for this year in that strategy document that we put together, Glenn and I and our team. And one of them is, whether this lawsuit will be decided this year or not. So that the national academies, that's going to be critically important. Whatever direction it goes into, we'll have to be prepared to respond, communicate what it actually means in the significance for future regulation. The taxes being the third one, the flavor discussion, and then also the fifth is the changes in personnel with the Food and Drug Administration. I think those are the 5 keys for 2022.
Okay. All right. So, Josh, you just you touched on this with the taxes. So last year, Congress introduced a nearly 1,000% tax on the premium cigar and a 1,600% tax on pipe tobacco. What was defeated, and what are the future prospects on the federal tax increases?
Yeah, so it was pulled out of the House of Representatives version. It passed the committee, the House Ways and Means Committee, which has jurisdiction over tax policy. There were some folks we talk about, what's public and what's not public. There were folks saying, hey, we got to fight this only in the Senate. I was one of the folks in the beginning, like, no, we cannot give them even a ceremonial victory of passing this in the House of Representatives. So we had a two-pronged track. That's where we set up those 150 congressional meetings. Ultimately, we're able to work with coalition partners and getting good data, good economic data to counteract the messaging. This was an anti-tobacco bill from its onset. It was introduced in 2 different versions prior to getting into that initial draft of Build Back Better. Those versions were not going anywhere because it was meant to reduce consumption of tobacco products. Then they introduced it to raise money for Build Back Better. And we said, you can't have it both ways. Either you're going to raise money, and which would mean you're raising consumption, or you're going to reduce consumption. That means less dollars. So you can't have both ends of that argument. Ultimately, it was pulled out. The Senate, it has no legs in the Senate right now. But again, we're continuing those meetings because we don't want it to have even a ceremonial victory with it. It would be catastrophic. You're talking about $3 per cigar, $100 per box in new federal taxes on top of the state taxes. In states like California and New York, it becomes cost prohibitive. We talk about the cigar lounge and the cigar shop being a melting pot from people from all different walks of life. Yes, it's a luxury product, but construction workers, police officers, doctors, lawyers, everyone gets together in cigar shops and is the same and talks and has those important conversations. And we want to preserve that so that anybody can enter this hobby. And, I know we refer to it as a hobby, and I do myself, but I think of it more as a passion. I don't smoke cigars. I enjoy cigars.
Good way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Frank?
Let's go and see what changes are taking place at the Food and Drug Administration. I think you guys talked about this, and have they announced their intentions for the new year? So obviously personnel. Now, do we know and how close are you to the personnel that are, the new hires, I'll call it, there at the FDA, and do you know what their intentions are? I mean, do you have
March is just a skip and a jump away, really.
Yeah, well, with the FDA commissioner, that will likely be confirmed either this week or next week, Dr. Robert Califf. And he does come from more of that medical camp rather than being so much of a zealot on tobacco issues, although he has written and has research on nicotine content and having a maximum threshold of nicotine content. So we have our arguments prepared. Number one, you can't test premium cigars. The content of that is going to differ from cigar to cigar, box to box, and it's impossible to set up those thresholds. So that's prepared. And again, I think that his thinking is more directed towards cigarettes and vaping, but unfortunately, it kind of all encompasses there. I mentioned the flavor provisions. That's an intention of this FDA, but things could change once we get a new commissioner and then eventually a new CTP director.
Dr. Gardo, Dr. Oscar, do you have anything to add to that one?
On the medical point of view?
For me, I mean, one question to Glenn that I would like to ask. Why can't we be like the wine and beer separated from the hard liquor? Why can't those two be separated once for all?
And I assume you mean by that separating from whom? Big tobacco?
Cigarettes?
Cigarette and vape.
I think we have. I think the difference in the approach to rulemaking substantiates that we have separated ourselves.
Yeah, let's see, we're taxing it according to
No. Nothing to do with taxing. From a regulatory perspective, I think this industry has moved mountains in separating itself from mass market and big tobacco and vape and e-cigarettes. I think that line has been crossed from a regulatory perspective, and I think the actions of the FDA substantiate that we have, as an industry, effectively separated ourselves from big tobacco, mass market, and vape.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you feel differently, I'm open to hearing examples, but I don't think it's there.
No, what I'm saying, when it comes to taxes, we are taxed like in California.
That's a state issue. That's a state issue. That has nothing to do with how the federal government goes about regulating this industry, and frankly, how the states go about it. Like I said, California is very unique, and California, I believe, is like Maine, I think, in that it's the only state that marries the cigarette tax to the OTP tax, again, on a set methodology that has nothing to do with legislative action. So California is a very unique anomaly in that regard. Yeah. But I think there's tons of examples at the state level where the cigar industry has effectively separated itself both from a tax and regulatory perspective from big tobacco.
Okay.
Yeah, true.
So Glenn, everybody's been talking about March, about when the FDA is going to get all their research and information in there. What can we, as the consumers and the industry, do to be heard or put up the fight? What direction would you recommend people to take?
Listen, it's going to be a period of time where the FDA digests what they get in that study.
Okay.
And to decide whether or not they're even going to use it or use it as a entree to some new regulatory process. I mean, let's find out what there is to fight before we decide what we're going to fight. Let's let them put the chips on the table. Let's find out what the battle is. I mean, they'll get the study, they'll digest the study, they'll initiate a reanalysis of their analysis. They're going to put it through the bureaucratic ringer, and let's see where the agency goes with it. Then we'll decide what the fight is, whether it's one that can be carried out in the halls of Congress or hell. I wouldn't be shocked if this is a battle we're not talking about under the next president.
Right.
Yeah. True.
Okay.
True.
All right.
So let's find out where the chips fall, and then we'll decide what the battle plan is.
Yeah.
Would it be too late though to wait that long without having people go on, approach the FDA, approach their local politicians to say, hey, we're interested. What can you do for us? Is it too early for us?
No, let's find out what's in the study first, and then we'll fight the study. We've got plenty of and Josh may chime in on this, but listen, we've got ammunition now that we never ever had before as an industry. Ever. And I can't think, and listening to those presentations, there's not a point that an tobacco, anti-cigar advocate, if you will, or professional or a public health professional, there's not one argument that's been put out that I don't think we're capable of refuting. But let's find out where the battle line is. Listen, we can turn that battle light switch on in a heartbeat. So let's find out what's in the study, and let's find out what the approach the agency is going to take, and then we'll draw our own line in the sand.
And that advocacy by the grassroots and by retailers, manufacturers, and consumers is going to be important when we have an active rule on the docket, or an intention of a rule, or if there's an active piece of legislation. If people want to get involved, you can go to cigaraction.org in our state page, and we have a litany of state active action alerts where you can write to your elected officials about things that they can affect. But as it relates to the NASEM study, reaching out to a member of Congress, they don't have any control over that study right now. And really, quite frankly, the FDA doesn't have control of that study at the present time. They funded the research, which is independent research of the FDA. Once they have their findings, then it gets kicked over to the FDA, and that is the appropriate time where mobilizing the troops and getting everybody to voice their opinions is most appropriate. Writing to the program director or the panel themselves, unless it is coming from like the esteemed medical guest that we have on the show, or an organization, it is not going to have the effectiveness as it would with a traditional grassroots campaign of average citizens, because there isn't that channel of activity that's open in a legislative or regulatory setting.
Gotcha. I think though what Ron was saying, if a ruling is made in March, what kind of pushback do we have in order to overturn that ruling? So, they decide this is going to be it. That's it. They make a law. What's the pushback at that point?
That's not going to happen.
They won't do that in March as it relates to this study. All they will do is release the findings. Then it would go into future rules. And you have a 60 or 90-day period of public comment where anybody, you can submit a comment on behalf of the Great Lakes Smoke Show. I could do it as an individual. Any of our retail members, PCA as an association will submit a comment. That's where folks will be able to engage with it. But It's not one of those things where all of a sudden they're not passing a law. The law passing legislation lies within Congress and is signed into law by the president. That's completely severed from where we're at right now. It is study, transition into regulatory front, where it will eventually go into the regulatory authority of the FDA, which they believe they have as part of the Tobacco Control Act and the deeming rule.
Gotcha. All right. Okay.
Josh, if I was and I know three guys are right here, own their own cigar lines as boutiques, but I was wondering, should the boutique guys after 2007, should they worry more? I mean, is there something that they got to, work on and make sure that they survive? Because these are family-owned businesses that a lot of them do have the big boys making their products for. But what about, I'm going to say, the BCA guys in general, the boutique guys? What can they do, if anything, at this point? Because this very big concern for the small guys after 2007.
Absolutely, and I think it's a justified and a reoccurring concern that pops up. The one positive indicator that I will point to is before Judge Maida rendered his decision, ultimately putting a stay on the substantial equivalence pre-market review for the category of premium cigars, the FDA did come up with a streamlined process that was ultimately tabled because of that decision. So the FDA even recognized that the system that they put in place for pre-market review and for substantial equivalence is not workable for the premium cigar category. Now that was their intention. They released that document, and that is something that we can always reference in future discussions, that they know that it wasn't workable. But the court decision, and I think that's an important win. I know that we all agree on the warning labels, but the substantial equivalence and pre-market review, in getting that stay, look what happened to the vapor product category. They had to go through that pre-market review substantial equivalence in 2021, and millions of products were pulled off the shelves or rendered to not be marketable. Premium cigars were not in that, and you saw new products that were able to come to shelves from small, medium, and large manufacturers. So we do have a lot of positive indicators on our side for those future discussions.
Okay, so as we're getting into wrapping up here a little bit, I mean, we've had a lot of great discussion here. We've had a lot of great questions. But this is going to go to both the BCA and the PCA guys. Josh and Glenn, feel free to get your weigh in on here, because everyone is wondering, what do you think about the future of the BCA and the PCA guys coming together, working together? Because as we all know, we have knowledge that, a lot of the 300 boutique cigars that are out there, a lot of the big boys are manufacturing those cigars. And those names are all helping to produce those cigars. What do you think about these two entities coming together as one voice, for our industry?
Power in numbers, right?
Yeah.
Glenn?
I think the grandest example I can think of was the public comment filed where we did it jointly. It was a PCA CRA BCA joint comment to the FDA. All of our letterhead, all of our logos were on the same piece of paper. We all spoke with one voice on that given public comment. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but I remember calling Gabby and sharing with him and getting his input and getting his edits and getting his narrative and get him rounding up the BCA members to support the filing of that comment with CRA and the PCA. I think we've got examples. I started this show with a litany of examples of where that cooperation has come into play. And I don't think it's a giant bridge, frankly. It's more of a walking path. It's it's not some great divide I see out there. Are there areas where I think personally that we can enhance levels of cooperation? Absolutely. We're all in this. We're all in this together, and freedom ain't free.
Yes.
You know, everybody's got to come to the table with expertise. Everybody's got to come to the table with resources, i.e., dollars. Everybody's got to come to the table with their respective membership. And honestly, the decisions that have been made bureaucratically and legally and politically have served this entire industry, from the smallest manufacturer in existence to the largest manufacturer in existence. Everybody's benefited, but not everybody's helped pay the freight on those victories and on the attempted battles.
Well, some of these boutique companies, they're not in a financial situation to, let's say, pay their way. What can the lower guys that don't have that kind of money do? I mean, I guess that's why they're hooking up with the BCA. The initiation money is not there.
Listen. There's a tremendous number of boutique companies that have an amazing consumer following, right?
Yes.
Yes.
How much does it cost to put cigaraction.org on their website? Zero.
That's what they
to help us build a national network of consumer followers that we can engage in political battles from state to state to state to state. What a marvelous first step to take to put cigaraction.org on your website, to give your following, your consumers, your passionate consumers, the ability to follow the legislative process that affects this industry. And it doesn't cost $1.
Yeah.
Let's start small and build up from there.
Okay.
Dr. Caro, Dr. Oscar, and Armin, when I asked you guys are the 3 BCA members here.
Yeah.
What can we do to do that?
Sure. Well, I've said it before. There should never be a divide within the cigar community. I don't think there was one. And as Glenn has said before and eloquently, and I mentioned it before, numerous examples of us working collectively. And that's how it should be. And that's how it will be moving forward as well. And I think what it really is it comes down to maybe the hesitance of some of the really newer companies that are part of the BCA that are just gun shy of maybe attending the trade show because I mean you have your little table and then you're engulfed by booths that are larger than some of the New York City apartments that I sell, and probably cost more to build them. I think that gets a little intimidating because I've been there as an observer one year when we first started the company. I've had a booth there for a couple of years as well. Garo can certainly add to that because he's been there for a quarter century. I think that's the one thing that maybe I think will get tons of boutique companies to jump on the wagon. Some of the companies, they call me and they say, well, you think they might be open to something similar to the platform of TPE or maybe what you guys do with the festival, because there are just restraints that don't allow them to. And if this is something that we can talk about, it doesn't have to be here or now on the air, but
but a good, having a good platform between you guys.
Because when you go and when I first got in this, when I went there, you're just like, wow, you're like a kid in a candy store. I mean, the atmosphere, the vibe, the aura is something you have to experience for yourself, going there and just seeing it for yourself. Whether you are a vendor, whether you're just there checking it out, whether you're a retailer, it doesn't matter. But there are challenges, again, if you are a small family-owned company, trying to get into the big league. So, yeah, I'm very excited when you have guys like Josh and Glenn Luke at the helm. I think it's fantastic because they have so much to offer, not only to the PCA but to the industry as a whole. I mean that sincerely. I never am one to mince words. I'm very open and honest about how I feel. So I think this is fantastic. I think there's a lot to be said and a lot that can be accomplished when you put people like this in a room. I imagine only good things will come out of it. So that encourages me and that drives me to move forward.
A quick question though, and I'm going to kind of put the PCA boys on the spot here because this question kind of goes both ways, and I know the answer that some of a lot of the BCA guys are members of the PCA. Are the PCA guys reciprocating, and are they members of the BCA as well?
I mean, for the retail standpoint, I know that a lot of our members carry the products of BCA members in their stores. That's where the relationship on that side of things housed. The trade show is obviously coming together, manufacturers plus retail members, but we always encourage folks to support the boutique brands, and if there's collaboration and cooperation and services that we can render. I think that there were some discussions last year about affording some opportunities to smaller companies on the show, and some of the companies did attend and had very strong years with that smaller footprint. And I think that that's always on the table as an open opportunity. And Scott, our executive director, has been hard at work this year, filling those spaces. And we're already better than we were last year in terms of the show footprint. So, it is one of those things where, I think that there's synergies there where it affords it. On the manufacturing side, they are obviously the associate members, and some of those PCA members are BCA members and vice versa. So the one other point that I will add in terms of future cooperation, one of the investments that PCA has made over the years is the legislative tracking and grassroots capabilities. We've mentioned Cigar Action. That is a grassroots tool. If any of the BCA members have an issue that they want to engage on at the state level or the federal level, they're welcome to work with us to set up an action alert to get people, to send those messages to Congress or the FDA or whomever, getting the contact information for staff segments. Glenn and I also have tracking software, which we invest in. And that's kind of the behind the scenes of, $50,000 every year is going towards grassroots capabilities and legislative tracking. Glenn and I, along with Ryan, our other colleague, tracked 16,000 state pieces of legislation last year, and we'll probably hit 20,000 this year. So we have a very good pulse of what's going on in the industry, but there's always gaps. And if a BCA member or smaller company or retailer that's a member of PCA or not a member of PCA, they see something, please reach out to one of us, and we'll work in the interest of the industry.
Actually, I think one of you mentioned it. I don't know if it was Glenn or Josh. I'd love to, of course, at a later time, hear more about what you guys have helped set up in New York, being that I'm from New York. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Josh, Glenn, just to try to finish it up in a sense, a couple of questions here, but the Great Lakes Smoke Show have been to the PCA a couple of times already. And one thing we do notice, and tell me if I'm wrong, but the little guys have these kind of small booths that kind of push back behind the big guys. And just looking at the flow of people, obviously everybody knows the big boys, and I'm not going to mention, we all know who they are. Oh, yeah. And they kind of always pushed up front where you first walk in, and it's like, wow. And from what we noticed, everybody seems to go to the big guys. Yeah. They do their heavy duty buy-in, and then when they go towards the back or the sides to the smaller guys, it almost seems like the money has already been spent. Is there anything that the PCA could do, maybe pushing the boutique guys in the front so people can see them mingle a little bit, maybe get some more sales to help the boutique guys? Because certainly everybody is going to find the big guys anyway. But is there any way that maybe the PCA could help the smaller guys out there at the shows? Any thoughts? I'm throwing you a curveball.
I think those sentiments and that's something that our board and the folks that work on the trade show are involved and they've heard that feedback. You know, they're researching different programs that we can offer for some of the smaller companies. I can say anecdotally, and Glenn and I aren't in any of those trade show meetings. And we really don't have a pulse on that. When it comes to the legislative updates and things like that at the show, that's where we have the most impact. But I do know anecdotally last year, you know, small company to large company, it was a strong show. I mean, there were companies for buyers across the board. And I think that, you know, hopefully that is a trend that continues where smaller companies also get to see that. And I think by and large, last year I mentioned with a kind of a safe regulatory climate because of a lot of the lawsuits and the advocacy, the fact that there were no new taxes. I mean, you did have this mini cigar boom that has afforded everybody in the industry a good opportunity. I've heard, you know, 30% up for brick and mortar. You know, if they had online a little bit higher than that. Import numbers have been strong. So there's positive indicators for the industry at large. And, you know, it's great to see everybody come together. I like to go out to different events too. And, you know, I plan on going to, if my schedule permits, I would love to go to the BCA event this year. I'm getting ready to go to TAA in February, and there's lessons learned in cooperation. And I'm a firm believer that over a cigar we can solve the world's problems. So I would love to do it in person with Armin and Dr. Garro and the team and all of the Great Lakes Smoke folks, you guys too.
Well, we will love to see you out there in August.
Let's put this in perspective a little bit too. Sure. And the guys at Cigar Dojo asked me this question once after the last trade show. 100% of the proceeds of this trade show goes towards defense of this industry. 100% of the proceeds go to the defense of this industry.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So we all know the story about the big four being there. So when you say the big guys, is there a new set of big guys? I mean, I'm not being totally facetious by saying that, but you said the big guys are up front.
Well, we know that the other.
So there's a new set of big guys. Okay, here's the moral of the story. And he's my favorite analogy to all of this, is Omar with Fratello Cigars. Okay. Omar, I don't even think you could call it a booth. He's in an aisle, and he was like quasi in front of La Polina, kind of lodged in between here and there. And you know what he said? He's selling everything he makes.
Yes.
He had an amazing trade show, and I'm not even sure you could say Omar was in a booth. It was like a table to process orders, his little space shuttle because he worked for NASA, and a display of his great cigars, and he's selling what he makes. And he said he had an amazing show. And I don't even think he had a booth. I think he had a little pretend spot that he stood there and took orders. And keep this in mind. Michael Hercott's company did not have a cigar to sell. Right. And he exhibited at the trade show.
Yeah.
Because why? Because he knew it was the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
I mean, you're sub boutique when you don't even have a cigar to sell and you exhibit at a cigar show.
Gotcha.
Because he knew it was the right thing to do.
Yes.
All
Why?
right.
Because every dollar on that floor is going to the defense of this industry, large, middle, and small, and large, and mega large alike. Right. And that, the more we keep that attitude going to say we're all in this mess together, the better off we're going to be.
Absolutely.
I agree with you, Glenn, but I don't like to hear that whoever did not exhibit it last year, they're irrelevant. That hurts me after 22 years exhibiting with PCA and PCA knowing that
PCA did not say that. PCA did not say that.
No, PCA. I didn't say PCA did, but PCA knew of it. They could have stopped it. So
no, they
this will-
couldn't. No, you're not going to clam everybody up. And just because you don't like what somebody else said doesn't mean that's a reflection on PCA.
Okay. That's good.
Okay.
All right.
I
Well,
guess.
I mean, we'll have to get the word out to whoever the show people are, because obviously you guys are not the show people, which is, again, didn't know how in you guys were on that half, but that's something that would have to be taken up with that crowd for sure. But let me just ask. So let me just final with Armin, Dr. Oscar, Dr. Gatto. Any last thoughts or discussions that you want to throw at Glenn and Josh at this point? Christine, anything?
No, I mean everybody said we have to work together. We're in it together. We have to fight together, and we have to be one voice.
Yes.
I like what Josh said. Like if there's things that we can contribute and be active. Like I would like to see if there's an activity that we can do in California to change things. I would like to spearhead it. So
there you go.
Okay.
That's good. That's wonderful to know, Doc.
You
I'd
have
like to work with you on that.
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't want to
like
be
spearhead it
redundant,
because
but
I'm tired of it.
sorry,
Because I got screwed up by them, the state of California, for cigars that I sold in Russia, and they freaking took 67% excise tax on it.
Oh.
Hey,
I've
Doc.
been providing them everything, so I'm ready to fight.
Hey, Doc, you got to remember the way I got to say this. You'll love this. Doc, you got to remember this. Terry Gallagher, our friend at Smoker Friendly, he shut down 4 stores he had in Northern California, and a magazine called him up and said, "Why did you shut down your 4 stores in California?" He said, "I only do business in America."
A beautiful response.
That's awesome.
Very
That is
good.
awesome.
Very good.
Florida. Move to Florida.
So on that note, we like to say thank you to all our panel that were here today for discussion. We really appreciate your time and your energy tonight. This was a great conversation, great insight to everything. We would like to invite you guys to stay on. We're going to do a quick segment of our smoke the Chooch.
And a fun question here that cousin Frank likes to ask us, and
just
a little bit, 3-4
making it
questions,
light,
and then we have our audience participation.
Loosen that necktie. Drop your chows. We're gonna be a little fun now.
Where's this going?
Have a shot of tequila.
It's a fun section we got. But just to let everybody know, our giveaway tonight is going to be a nice cutter from Corona, which is our sponsor. We also have a Cigar Medic little cigar holder that Luigi has put together, and you could put that over there. Alrighty, and that's from Cigar Medic. And just a little sticker from us, just to know that that's who you got it from. So enjoy. We're going to have some fun questions and loosen up and have some laughs on us.
So
if
the
you like to
first
stay
3 or
on,
4 questions, everyone can answer. The very last question, we give it to the audience so that somebody can win. So, but yeah,
we had a great
few
audience
questions,
this evening, so
everyone
we want
can answer.
Give them something for hanging out and listening to all of us.
Yes.
So we invite you to stay. If you can't, no problem. We thank you, but stick around. I think you'll have some fun.
Have some fun. And listen, this is open to anybody on the panel who wants to answer.
Yes,
so
of
I
course.
happen to be a history buff, and I like to do a this day in history. And so on this date in history in 1918.
Ooh. Okay.
That's Bob's time. He was
Bob
born.
was 20 years old.
Yeah. So since we're talking about political advocacy, certain advocacy groups were working towards overturning the decision of the Senate to pass the 18th Amendment of the Constitution. This amendment was passed in the year 1917, and it was outlawed. It outlawed the sale, transportation, and manufacturing of alcohol in the United States. By 1920, this law had come into effect.
Prohibition.
Prohibition.
There we go.
There you go. There you go. Very nice. That was an easy one.
What was the amendment?
Word for word?
No, it was titled. It was a specific numbered amendment.
21st
that was-
Amendment.
No.
No.
Proposition 20. Shoot. Crap! I forget the actual.
You know, all you people are chooches.
Wow.
It was the 18th Amendment.
18th. Oh, okay.
18th Amendment. Yeah.
All right.
The 21st repealed it.
Yeah.
The
Right.
21st repealed 18th.
Yeah. There you go.
All
There
right.
you go.
There you go.
Look at that. Nice.
That's right. That's right.
That's the better one. That's what I'm thinking. Like the one that allows booze. You know,
Yeah, we're
I
all.
gotta make that tequila money here. You know?
Hey, Josh, it's okay. You would still make the money. We'll just make it a speakeasy, you know.
Exactly. So now we're going to move up to 1967.
Ooh, all right. Bob's 50 years old.
Albert DeSalvo was sentenced to life in prison. He claimed to have murdered 13 women in the Boston area, 1962 through 1964.
Boston Strangler.
Boston Strangler?
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
All right.
Yeah.
An easy ones there.
Wasn't it all nurses too, or something like
I
that?
think so.
Yeah, they were all nerds.
Yeah, all nurses. Yeah.
Yep.
See, I know something. I know something.
A little bit. So now we're going to go back to 1920 on this date in history.
1920. Oh, geez.
1920.
We're going all over the board here, Frank. Come on.
I know. I jumped around a little bit. It's just the way my mind works. So, Harry Mays, who was also known as this, was reported on this day to be down with pneumonia. Before his day, he had created a type in this nation claiming that he was able to heal people by magical touch of his hand. The doctor who had treated Mays said that May's condition is serious, but that he is likely to recover. What was he known as?
Crazy.
Charlatan.
Well, he said that he could heal the sick. So he was named this.
He was a quack.
Ask the doctors. Doctors, do you have an answer?
The Miracle.
Miracle Man.
Of 1920. Yeah, because he could heal the sick. And the train's coming in for you.
Coming,
The train's
coming to take me away. Here you go.
I think we're ready to go right to the
Let's
audience.
go to the question here, guys.
Right, guys.
Let's get the answers from the audience.
All right, Kyle, I need my very special introduction music. Yeah, that's my mating call for the chooch. As you can tell, a donkey. So, here's the question. And this is for the audience, for the gift away. It's
the gift away, yes.
Here we go. On January 18th, 1989, this person became the youngest living person to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame at a ceremony in Waldorf in New York. Other inductees included the Rolling Stones, the Temptations, Otis Redding, and Dion.
Ooh. That's a good question. I like it.
It's good. Let's see if you got an answer.
I don't know this one.
Michael Jackson is wrong.
Is wrong. Oh, we got Stevie Wonder.
Chet King says Stevie Wonder. Is Stevie Wonder the correct answer? The correct answer is.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, wow.
Science.
Also known as Little Stevie Wonder.
Little Stevie Wonder, yes. Stevie Wonder.
Nice going check.
Chet King is American.
Right, there you go.
Wow.
All right.
Nice.
Very good.
Thanks, Chet. You are
Now,
the
did you know the answer? Did you Google it?
Well, Alexa,
Nobody really knows. They always go.
Hey, you get it in there before everybody else, you're still a winner.
Chet
Either
will
way.
get that out to you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Anyway, Josh, Glenn, Christine, Dr. Oscar, Armin, we want to truly thank you for spending these couple hours with us and trying to get a lot of information to the audience. And we want to thank you all for your great work that you're doing for all of us and the industry. We ask you, please keep up the work and let us know what we can do for you. And we're there for you. All right. We really are. And can't thank you enough. Glenn,
We're a good
Josh,
voice.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Right.
everybody.
Thank you for having us.
Christine, thank you. Armin, to all of us, to all of you, we'll see you next Tuesday night.
Remember to light them up, folks.
Light 'em up.
Light them up. Good night, everybody.
Many of the cigar brands that we make, they're antique, historic cigar brands. They've been made on and off for about 100 years. When you're smoking Toscano, you're smoking 206 years of history. The Italians are here.
We're here. We're in the house. For some reason, we find a lot of Italians on this show.
My leave
Yes,
to go and
Bruce.
take the cannoli uncles over here. Decided to be on the show sometime.
Listen, I'm a Jersey guy.
Hey,
so,
we won't hold that against you.
We invented this to make. We want to give people the opportunity to smoke the cigar at the optimal level.
The Chooch cigar. Can you believe it? The Blanco 9 Chooch.
¿Cómo va? ¿Está bien, oye?
¿Qué dice? ¿Cómo está?
Finally, I can answer the question. Anything new?
Yeah.
And we have some cool new stuff from Oliva.
This is a passion for me. It's not a job.
Your love and passion for this is,
I love it.
unbelievable.
That's why we can make pipes out of this variety of corn.
11 years ago, I went back and I bought the rights to everything La Polina.
Sure, it's family.
And restarted the brand again as a tribute to my grandfather.
It's nice because you get to see a lot of your friends. You got to remember, I've been doing this for 30 years, so a lot of these people are like family.
Build a platform where we could celebrate boutique cigars.
Leave Starlight House blend for one store in Pennsylvania.
Wow. Join forces. Pipe tobacco and
superheroes. I always look forward to the Super Bowl events, and I always look at the trade show as just one of those things.
We're not just selling cigars. We try to live our lives, and we use this as a means to share our stories and to really create community.
Hold on, man. Wow, that was wow, man. You got me.
Tell my brothers to line them up. We'll drink that whiskey from those old dirty cups. We'll toast to the present, the future, and the past. This ain't my first drink, but it ain't my last. 'Cause this world is so beautiful. I see its love come shining through. This world is so beautiful.